about manifestation, the law of attraction, and dig a little bit more into um, the shift. So I'll let you go ahead, Mom. For those, let me put your name up here just in case anybody's joining us for the first time. This is episode 2. We have not picked a name yet, so any suggestions would be good.
Yeah, you would think with my intuition, I'd be able to rattle that off to you.
I know.
But it still hasn't come in yet.
Well,
You know,
go.
That is exactly how I got the name or the domain for my website. You know how people say Earth calling so-and-so? Like you're out there in the stars somewhere.
In space.
Yes. And that's how the name Heaven Calling Earth came to me. It was through intuition. I was told to check and see if that was available.
Okay. Is that how you like you're out there in the stars somewhere? Space. Sorry, I'm checking to make sure we were. There we go.
Okay.
It's on.
Is that how what?
So I was going to say, I remember you told me that's some of the ways that you've picked up, like in dreams and things like that, how you got your what's it called? Some of the things like Sydney's name, for example.
Actually, Sydney's came to me in a dream. We had gone over different names, and there were a couple we liked. We really liked Caitlin. But my dad came to visit me while I was pregnant with her, and her name was on the side of a bottle. And the funny part of that is that after, a week old, she never took another bottle. She wouldn't.
Wow.
But in the dream, my dad said she's going to be a handful. And, I relayed that, of course, to Donnie, who got thoroughly upset because he thought, he was saying she was going to be a bad child. Well, he was stay-at-home dad because he was injured at that time. He was dealing with a work injury. And you well know, I think, she was more than a two-handed child. We couldn't leave her with anybody unless there was at least 2 of them with him. She wouldn't take a bottle. She wouldn't, stubborn.
Wonder where she gets it.
I have no idea. Are you trying to say that's a genetic trait?
Possibly, yes.
I don't think I'm stubborn.
Okay.
Determined, and yes, there are things that nobody can talk me out of. And there's a reason for that. Because for my entire life, I have had a connection with spirit, and I didn't even know that it was anything other than God and my guardian angels up until I was an adult. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And following the guidance that spirit gave me always led me where I was supposed to go. So yes, I have been accused of, being impossible at times, but, by following spirit guidance, it's always led me in the right direction. So even if 1,000 people line up and tell me, Pam, you're wrong, you shouldn't do it this way, Pam's still going to do it that way if she's getting guidance from the intuition that that's the right direction to go. Again, it's never led me wrong. Funny story, just recently, I sent you the pictures of the crop circles this morning. Well, when that, I pulled over after a line or 2 ran, and I said to Donnie, I think there's something wrong with the blade on the tractor. No, the grass is just wet. It's just wet, and the wheel's pushing it down, and, well, I said, okay. And I got back on the tractor and proceeded to cut the rest of the 3.5 acres. And you saw the crop circles.
Yeah.
And when he took the mower into the garage. And I had heard while I was still riding, boy, he is going to be upset when he realizes there's something wrong with that blade. Needless to say, after he came in from the garage, he was a little bit bothered and embarrassed because I had told him before the whole yard was cut that there was something wrong with the blade. But, again, he thought it was the grass was so wet because it's been raining here so much that it was just the wheel smashing the grass down on that side.
Stubbornness.
And you've seen the pictures. Those are some pretty good crop circles, aren't they?
Yeah.
Needless to say, the tractor's on its way to get serviced and repaired.
But you've got your crop circles now.
Yes, we had an alien visit. It's just I was the alien.
So anyone joining us, tell us where you're from and say hi. What we're going to talk about today, again, is manifestation, the law of attraction, and more on the global shift. So, Mom, why don't you jump on into the law of attraction and the manifestation?
Okay. There are universal laws that dictate what happens in our world. And we think of our universe as Earth, but really it's more expansive than that. But let's just say here on Earth, okay? And the law of attraction is that like attracts like. What you put out is what you're going to get back. Much like the law of karma, where if you do certain things, and anything that you put your energy into is, and the way and manner in which you put that energy into it is the way that it is going to come back. Let's say that you're constantly worried, okay? I don't have enough money, okay? Well, the more energy you put into that, you are magnetizing it and making it bigger. Some of you have probably heard of Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. And he wrote a book that, we say he's ahead of his time. Nobody's really ahead of their time. But he was more aware, the power of positive thinking, okay? And, there's another young man out, well, he's not so young anymore, but Tony Robbins, and he is a motivational speaker that tells people how to use their energy in a positive way. I have a book that I have read in the past, and there's a clip from it that I would like to read for you about manifestation. Okay?
Okay.
Creation and involvement in the universe is going to happen, and how it will happen to you will correspond to what you believe about yourself. You can escape yourself, and if you don't love yourself, God can't get in there and rectify a whole problem for you. God stands beside your creation. When God said that he made man in his image, many times we think that that means that God is a man with a head, 2 ears, physical body. In actuality, that is man creating God in his image, not the other way around. When God created man in his image, that means that he made us co-creators of our world, okay? Mm-hmm. But here on Earth, we have something of a delayed reaction in that creation. And that's there for a purpose because this world is a school of sorts. It's a school of life. It's a school of soul evolution, okay? And we are going through a vibrational shift now where all of the gifts that we have available to us are coming back, whether that is communication through telepathy, and when God created, he spoke the word and it happened instantaneously, okay? Thank goodness we don't have that capability that quickly because many of us say things that once those words pass our lips, we realize, well, maybe we really don't want that. And, you've heard that saying, be careful what you ask for, you might get it.
Oh, yeah.
and if you put enough energy into anything, that is what you're going to get. Now back to the quote here.
Well, before you get back into it, I mean, there's been numerous things that I've said, when I was younger, and I realized that knowing now the law of attraction and all of these things that, what you put out there, you're going to get back. I created them myself.
That's right.
And I wasn't very picky with my words. I
Well,
wouldn't have that
and
father
again,
at the bride
people
wedding.
realized exactly how powerful their thoughts and their words are.
Mm-hmm.
They would be much more mindful of them.
Oh, yeah.
And when you first start working and realizing that you are co-creating your reality, you're going to fall down. You're going to slip. Okay. Now I'm surrounded with the word believe. It has, meant a lot to me my entire life. And that has to do with the fact that I know whatever you believe is what your reality is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when you want something and you desire something, you have to believe in it, not just, as the Secret book tells us, you create a vision board. Well, it goes a lot deeper than just creating a vision board. You have to believe that it's possible, and you also have to take action behind that desire. Okay. But we are moving into a time with this shift where it's not taking as long for the manifestation / the creation to come to reality. Okay. And so we have to really be on top of what we're creating. I mean, it's kind of like, the situation, the polarization of all this political stuff and the divide. People are going down a horrific, slippery slope because of what they're creating. We're on the brink of creating a civil war here in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not only do we create on an individual basis, but we create on a mass basis. And there are people that are, quote unquote, in power that know that. Okay. And that is part of the reason behind them spoon feeding, whether it be through social media or through the media, as in TV, movies, whatever. These are all things to create an outcome. Okay. And I want you know what the Wi-Fi signal looks like the radio waves going out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what our thoughts do. Okay.
Okay.
Thoughts become things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a mass of people that are thinking in the same way, now all that energy is brought together and it manifests exactly what they're putting into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And again, this is part of the reason that we need.
It's the energy level.
Yes, we need to step outside of the division. We need to step outside of the chaos that is being created and not feed into, right or wrong, left or right. It doesn't matter. As long as you're putting energy into it at all, you are participating in creating what is happening. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We have to stay grounded and centered and on the outside of that. And if you're going to feed anything into it, it needs to be love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Now, back to the quote here. I want, because this is so profound when I read it, and I just want to share it. There's nothing like a good book and then being able to share it with people. God stands beside your creation and offers you peace and happiness 24/7. But you must love yourself to allow yourself to have it. Whether you love yourself unconditionally, the kingdom comes, which means that is all good, God. It is all good, and all God and good is available to you. And you are also good and God. However, when you won't allow yourself to be loved or appreciated by yourself or anybody else, you're denying yourself that freedom. When you love God with the whole being, then the kingdom comes. The kingdom is a state of being, and it's your divine right. As a spiritual partner with God, to manifest as God does and live accordingly. Now, in actuality, we're manifesting already. We're not recognizing that we're doing it, and we're disappointed with what we're creating. And see, that's where people get into, my life is crap. And it's because so and so does this, or so and so is, not allowing me, or this one, or that one, or the other one is doing things. Okay. I say, instead of placing blame on other people for what is in your life, take responsibility for what you've created. And yeah, responsibility is a tough burden to carry sometimes, especially when your life is a mess. But it's also very empowering, because when you can take that responsibility and know that you have created whatever mess that you're standing in, that also means that you have the ability to create something good and step outside of that mess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like I always look at and say I am in my situation because I put myself there. I allowed this and I allowed that. Not to beat up on myself, but saying, what do I need to change to not have this again?
Well, and we also have to come to the realization that, we're not just randomly here. Okay. We have chosen to come here, and we choose, people have a hard time wrapping their head around the fact that, you choose all of this before you incarnate, before you're ever, put in the womb. You have outlaid your life school curriculum. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that free will isn't available and part of it, because this is a domain of free will. What we do is we set up situations and we make agreements and contracts with other souls, and then we give ourselves options.
I can't
You can
believe some
have,
of the lessons I picked.
what's that?
I said I can't believe some of the lessons
We
I
give
picked.
and there is a reason for every lesson that we pick. What we pick are the particular classes. Everybody takes patience over and over and over again. Okay. And I've heard a few people say, I've got that lesson. Can we hurry up and move on to the next one? Well, clearly you haven't got it if you want to hurry up and get on to the next one, right? You have to keep a light heart and realize that, step back and see the humor in everything. We don't laugh enough. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We give ourselves choices. You can choose to learn the lesson. You can choose to evolve and grow, or you can not really recognize what's going on and continue to blame other people for the shit pile you're standing in. And don't wait for somebody else to do it. Do it yourself, because then you're in control and you're in power, empowered to change whatever it is that you desire to change.
So,
Okay.
so what do you recommend on how for someone to do that? It's hard to shift your mindset. It's not easy to start just thinking.
Well, the very first thing you have to do is come to the realization that you are creating the reality that you're living in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That we are co-creators. Each one of us is set up like the Holy Trinity.
Explain that one.
There is a foundation of truth in every single religion. In every single religion out there, there's a foundation of truth. Okay. And you will hear many of them talk about the Trinity. It may be under different names, but I'm going to use God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God the Father is our higher self, and there is a a creator that is at the peak of it
Mhm.
all. Okay. But we are all created in that same fashion. Okay. Now let's go to the original Trinity, which is God the Father, and then God the Son, which was Christ, who incarnated as the Son, the human aspect that came into this dimension,
Mhm.
okay, to walk the walk, so to speak, and show us how it can be done. And the Holy Spirit, and if you may know, you may not. In the Bible, it tells us that, Jesus tells us that we will never be left alone and unattended. That is the Holy Spirit that lives within us,
The voice in your head.
in our hearts, um, the thought adjuster, if you will, that helps us. And you have to differentiate, okay?
Mhm.
The Holy Spirit and things coming from the heart. People say if you follow your heart, it just gets you in trouble. That's not true. It's when you follow your head that you get in trouble. When you follow your heart, the Holy Spirit, the thought adjuster, whatever label you want to put on it, guides you and tells you this is right or this is wrong. Okay. And there is not a situation that you go through that there aren't signs that are given. They'll and they may start out as being little signs, a little 3 by 5,
And
you
I
know.
just remember what you constantly told me, that you make God smack you upside the head with the frying pan before you get the sign. Like, you surpassed all the little signs and you went for the frying pan.
And that's the point. There'll be, you might want to slow down sign, and then there'll be a stop sign. But if you choose to blow through that stop sign, because we're in free will, you're not going to be stopped. Okay.
And you're
Not until
forcing.
the police officer pulls you over and says, "Did you see that sign back there?" And in life, what is on the other side of that stop sign is what? Things that you don't necessarily want, right?
Right.
You can't really blame God because he gave you all the signs all along the way.
No, but you chose to go forward anyway. You told me, he's going to give you the signs. If you choose to go ahead and step in the poop, then it's on you.
And some people just don't step in it. Some people have to take a full bath just to be sure that it really is.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
I've done that one too many times.
And again, this is why I listen when I get the guidance, even though other human beings standing here may tell me, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. I am never going to listen to a human about me being wrong over that internal voice, because that internal voice has never in my life led me wrong. And, I have so many stories that I could, track back to, that it's never failed me. Now, that's not to say that I haven't had my own lessons and stepped in my own piles, okay? But when I was going against something, I knew full well what I was doing before I did it, okay? And that's the place that people have to get to. All right, I'm creating, and since I'm creating, do I want to create by design or by default? People that create by default, more often than not, are creating things that they absolutely don't want and wish they could get rid of. Okay.
Well, that's
And
something we have to learn how to define, or people need to learn how to define, which I use that vision board to define the things that I want.
right. And many people use the law of attraction to create material and physical wealth. Okay.
Hmm.
But that's not the only thing that it's there for. It is there to create the emotional happiness that you desire. Okay. And you know, God, we're given everything. In the Bible is encoded with many messages. Many people just don't know how to understand them or decode them. There's a verse in there. It says, seek, and I may not have it in the right order, okay? Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. Ask and it shall be answered. The very first thing you have to do is become a seeker of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when you start seeking and diligently seeking, though you will find the answers. But we live in a materialistic world where we are pounded with materialism. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And people fall into thinking that's all that's important. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have been shown over and over again, you know, and if this virus, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, hasn't shown us anything, it should be showing us that the most important thing is our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we are, as humans, social creatures. We need that interaction with other human beings. Okay. Distancing isn't really social. Okay.
No, there have been some good things to come out of, this. It's been a very frustrating situation, and there's a lot of, like you said, distancing, a lot of being alone, but a lot of good changes have come out of it for sure. Like the ability for so many people to work from home, if they have that ability, it's shown employers that it's possible. I think it's changed school in some cases for the better, showing that you don't need as much time in school physically as they were. And I want to say hi to Barbara. She joined us. I know she's got some questions to ask.
Hi, Barbara. Welcome. Every single thing, we live in a world of duality. Okay. Part of the reason that we come through a veil with amnesia is because all those lessons that you laid out before you incarnated, you know, if you're...
Well, explain that before you go coming through the veil with amnesia. Explain that.
Okay. When we enter Earth and we're born, we are given amnesia of our true existence, of our whole being. Okay. We forget that we are co-creators. We forget that, you know, we chose to be here. Okay. And many people that are here, not many, all that are here right now on this earth chose to be here during this time, because this is a time when we can transmute a lot of the things from our karmic wheels, you know, get rid of the karmic debt that we have incurred in lifetime after lifetime. And it's about ascension. And, you know, when Jesus rose from the dead on the third day, and, you know, they weren't able to touch him, it was because his light body was activated and he was going to the highest level. We all have that same ability, and we can do that in this lifetime. You know, this is the fulfillment of the 25,000 year prophecy in all of the different, you know, there's the Hopi, you know, the Indian prophecy. There is the religious prophecy. If you do research, you'll find that there are elements in it all that this is it. And many people believe that it was going to be the end, if you will, was going to be December 21st, 2012.
So like the Revelations.
If you're going from the Christian aspect, we are in Revelations. Okay. And again, if you go and you look at the different ways that it has been predicted, it's there. We are in it. This is the time. And it's not about finding out who we are. It's about remembering who we are and what our purpose is here. And everything and everyone is connected. Okay. And up to this point, we have traveled in soul groups, and we change positions in the groups. Like in this particular one, you're my daughter, but there's another loop or timeline or life where you weren't the daughter, you were the mother. What we're doing is trading positions to learn different things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have the ability to access the entire lines. Okay. Let's say, I've learned certain lessons. You have the ability to meditate and tap into the lessons that I've already learned so that you don't have to relearn them over. Does that make sense?
I want to know more about this.
Tapping into the lessons, again, it comes from, the meditation and recognizing, taking responsibility, okay, for the life and the world that you have created. And, I think that is the most important element is, one, to become a seeker. That's the first step. Then after you become a seeker, then you start taking responsibility for what you're creating. Okay. The golden rule and the most important law, universal law, is the golden rule. You treat others the way that you want to be treated. And let's say in the past you've treated somebody like crap. Okay. And you're not in a position to go back to that person because they're not going to be open to an apology or a recognition that what you did before was out of being unevolved, out of ignorance. It wasn't out of maliciousness. It wasn't out of hatred. It was out of ignorance. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when I say ignorance, I don't mean uneducated. I mean ignorance of the fact that you were creating certain things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
real quick,
you step out of it. Hello, Christina. When you step out of that ignorance and start really seeking, and you seek to make amends. You can't go back to that other person. Maybe they've passed away, or they're not open to that type of a conversation, and maybe they're not at the same level in their soul evolution that you are, so they're not going to be receptive. But you go from your heart to be sincere about the changes that you're making, and that's all it takes to release it.
Okay.
But you can't continue in that same behavior. If you apologize and then go out and do the same thing all over again, it's not going to work.
No, it's not a genuine apology.
Well, and unfortunately, there are some religions that are set up on the premise of you go and you confess, and then you can go back out and do the same thing, and then come back and confess, and it's all good. That's
all it takes is confession.
Yeah, confession is good for the soul, but if you go back, if you keep doing that's the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You have to change where you're coming from. You have to change your behavior. You have to change the way, and the best rule to live by is to treat people the way you want to be treated, not the way that you are treated.
Yeah.
And then you're coming from a place of sincerity, and that's the way it works.
Yeah. Well, that's again it's the same thing as putting out the intentions. You treat people the way you want to be treated, and then you'll get it back. It's magnetizing what you want.
Well, it also, by doing that, and you can't change anybody else. You have people that say, I want to change the world. Okay, that's great, but you're not going to do that from a pulpit preaching at people.
Yeah.
And I'm not, getting on preachers per se, but what I'm saying is, taking a podium and getting out here and standing and telling people you need to change this and you need to change that. you can only change one person, and that's the one that you have to sleep with and the one that you look at in the mirror.
Right.
And that's you. You know, Michael Jackson, wise young man, the man in the mirror. And that's the only one that you can change.
Mm-hmm.
You have power to change that person. And when you change yourself and you start, your frequency raises, okay? Everything is frequency, either light frequency or sound frequency. And when you raise your frequency, you're going to start attracting people. You always attract people that are at the same frequency level, same lesson level that you are at. And when you change that frequency that you're at, you're not going to attract the same types of people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, somebody that is at a lower level is going to be repelled by somebody that is at a higher frequency. Does that make sense?
I do understand what you're saying, but how do you? Okay,
You know,
so how do you change the frequency?
you're by inner work, by working on yourself. And you know, there are many ways that people do that. They do it through meditation. You know, prayer and meditation go hand in hand. When you pray, you're asking the higher power to show you, you're asking for something, whether it be guidance or for something else to show up for you. When you meditate, you're listening for the answers to be given to you, to be shown to you, you know, for you to hear it, for you to feel it, for you to see it. Okay. We have, you know, think of your senses, whether it be hearing, seeing, smelling. All of these senses, we have a higher sense that ties together. Think about, you know, we have our human physical eyes, which allow us to see what's out here in the world going on around us. We also have a third eye, which for all intents and purposes is in the middle of the forehead. Many of us have seen images of it. You know, it shows like the triangle with the eye in the center of it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, again, another symbol that has been hijacked to the other side to mean something negative. That's because, again, we live in a world of duality where everything has a positive meaning and a negative meaning. We're here to transcend that and go into the higher meanings of everything. So your third eye, if you think about when you dream, your physical eyes aren't open, are they?
No.
But you're seeing clearly. Okay. And that is it. It is housed in the center of the pineal gland, which is like a walnut shaped thing in the center of your brain. Okay. We dream with our third eye. And you can get it where your third eye is activated and usable during your waking state. Okay. Now, there are people that have done things that, you know, the psychedelic drugs that are out here, drugs. No, I don't like the word drug. Let's use plants. Okay. And there are, you know, in the, like the shamans. And I see your question, Barbara, and I will answer that in just a second. I'm going to use the example of ayahuasca. Okay. That is a plant medicine that is used by indigenous people. And one of the main elements of it is a chemical called DMT. Do you know how many plants on this earth have DMT in them? Your body produces DMT. This is, you know, they call it a drug in the United States, and they make it illegal. But DMT is a chemical that your body naturally produces. Okay. But
I'm going to have to look into that one.
If people wake up, you know, to these different things, it's kind of I would not suggest to anybody that you go and do something like an ayahuasca ceremony without first doing inner work. Because what's going to show up for you is going to be all of your issues. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
if you know going in that you have issues, that's how people have what they call bad trips. You know, like the people that used to take LSD and, you know, they made us afraid of all of that. Again, there are many plants that have that DMT in it. And those psychedelic things were put here to help people with the spiritual journey. It's kind of a, I'm trying to think of a good word to use. It's like something that can give it a boost and a start, but it's not something that's meant to be used recreationally and in any and all environments. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that you decide you want to use something like DMT or ayahuasca to jumpstart your journey. Okay. But if you go into an environment where people are drinking alcohol and so on and so forth, and alcohol is a chemical that lowers your vibration, and it also attracts the lower frequencies. So you're in an environment with say a room of 20 people, and 19 of them are drunk on alcohol. You're going to be dealing with not only your own demons, but you're going to be dealing with theirs too, because you've opened yourself up. So anytime you go to do something like that, you need to be mindful of the set and setting, and you have to be mindful of the intentions that go along with it. It's very necessary to set intentions. You know, I took a trip to Peru, and
That
I
was
went.
just going to say, it makes sure when you're experimenting with that, you're doing it on some kind of spiritual group. You're not just going and trying to do something on your own. I would.
No, in whether it's ayahuasca or just straight DMT, and I know there are people that have access to that and they use it. But number one, I would not recommend it without doing your inner work first. You have to have somebody that is there to sit with you, because, you know, and somebody that is not doing it, because you have to, all your shit is going to come up and it's going to be in your face. Okay. And you need to be able to face that. You know, the shaman that I went with, you know, we were all talked to. I was in a group of 13 people, and we were in the jungle for 11 days, and we did 5 ceremonies. We did one every other day. Okay. And we were in the rainforest. Okay. You know, there's no technology, there's no cell phones. You know, I was out of communication with anything and everybody for that entire 11 days. Okay. So there's no, you know, we were in a setting where there could be absolutely no outside influences on what we were experiencing. But we were also told before we started the ceremony, you know, some people have issues that show up, and, you know, they're fearful, they're loud, they're obnoxious, they're whatever. If you get in that position and that's what's happening with you, we will restrain you. Are you okay with that? Now, we didn't have anybody in our group that had to be restrained, but that was something that you had to agree to ahead of time.
I think it sounds a little bit scary.
It can, as I said, you need to be in a position, you know, before I researched the group. Okay. And you know Mick McManus, the shaman. I have worked with Mick since 2002. The group that I went to Peru with was a group that he had, an organizer that he had gone to Peru with 20 years before I ever met him. Okay. So that made me comfortable with the organizer of that group. You know, you have to research and you have to make sure that you feel comfortable, because you are putting yourself in a state of vulnerability. Okay. And, you know, if you're that vulnerable, you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the people that you're with, because they're, you know, and I have heard groups in the US where, you know, people have had some awful things happen to them. Okay. So I recommend that you research. Okay.
Okay.
And how do you overcome fear, Barbara? Well, the first thing is you have to recognize what your fears are. Okay. You can't really, I in my life didn't even realize I had any. And I started to go through the upgrades, if you will, for this spiritual awakening in December of 2012. And I was put in the advanced class. I was given prep dreams, which I promptly forgot about until the stuff started unfolding, and I was shown that I had some fears. I experienced what it felt like to feel like they were trying to use government mind control on you. I got to feel what it was like for someone to feel and believe that they were possessed by a demon, aliens. The demons, the aliens, the disincarnate spirits, piece of cake, piece of cake. Government mind control was not a walk in the park. That was hard. It was hard. I have communicated with non-visible spirit world my entire life. But feeling like some human on this earth was messing with me and messing with my head, not something I would want to wish on anybody. But I was being shown every way that people can experience this vibrational shift and spiritual awakening. And that's largely due to the fact that I work with people that are going through it, and I'm able to walk them through it and tell them, no, you're not losing your mind. Yes, this is really happening. And personally, I don't even really believe in demons, but not demons like you see in movies, okay? But if you believe in it, then you can experience it. Does that make sense?
It might take her. Well, it makes sense to me.
And I see Art, she says, me too, and I've had it bad. What have you had bad? The fear?
I would say definitely, probably she's had some fear and maybe anxiety too.
Yes, and that is the anxiety that people are experiencing. One, you have our issues at this point are rising to the surface, and they're rising to the surface so that we can deal with them and release them. In the end, there's nothing to fear, but until you get to a place where you not just think it, but you know it with everything within your being. There are many people afraid of what. There is no death, Barbara. The physical body may die, but we are immortal. What's the word I'm looking for? We're immortal spiritual beings. The anxiety, there are a number of things that are feeding into it. One of the things is the issues that are rising for us to deal with, heal them, and release them. And then the other thing is there are outside forces that are playing into it. I don't know if you're familiar with, like the Wi-Fi and radio waves and the microwaves, but they actually cause physical anxiety. Okay. And, there you have to do things to overcome the anxiety. You have to figure out the source. There are people that have physical symptoms that show up. Now, insomnia. I can tell you that if you go through enough insomnia and inability to sleep, you're going to end up having a major episode. I understand the fear of death as well. But I can tell you from what I've been shown, we're all going to be together again a lot sooner than most of us realize. But it's not like, it has to be an apocalyptic event where we're suffering through it all. This is to be, and it's why we're going through the things that we are now, so that we can do our inner work and the polarization of everything that's going on, whether it's the political, the racist stuff, all of these things are divide and conquer tools. And what the guardians, the spirit guides, the guardian angels are looking for is to see who has what issues left to deal with. Okay. If, and you see these people out here that are angry and they're getting in everybody's face and causing all kinds of issues. Those people are walking around with a lot of anger and hatred in their heart. Okay. And that is showing the guardians what exactly those people have left to work on. And they will be put back into another third dimensional situation where they will have to learn those lessons. Okay. But we're in a position where we have the ability to rise above that.
I don't think Christina had a question. She was making a statement.
I know, and I was just commenting on her statement.
Well, I mean, there is a death of the physical body, and that is kind of scary to some of us. Some of us aren't on your level. So, and I can relate having the fear of losing someone, the fear of, the loss of someone that is close to me, or just, I don't handle death well. So that fear does exist. It is real for some of us who aren't as evolved. It's painful because you're mourning that you can't talk to them. Even if it's for now, you still can't talk to them, hug them, see them, or anything again in the physical.
Right. And again, what I have been shown, and I don't know if it's going to happen in this earthly lifetime for me, again, that's not something, and anybody that is saying that they can put a timeline on it, they're deluding themselves, or they're just, don't have a clue. None of us knows the exact time that it's going to happen. But I can tell you from what I've been shown is that we have the possibility of transcending physical death this time. And so I'm feeling like it's going to be sooner rather than later. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Well, what do you mean transcending? What's the
I mean that, just like they say, it happens in a flash. We will go from the position of having the amnesia and not knowing to this flash where it all becomes known to us. In other words, the veil of amnesia is completely lifted.
Like, is it when you say the veil of amnesia? So when you have those deja vu experiences, I've experienced this before. Is that something similar?
You're talking about something different than the veil. We live both reincarnational lives, which are like consecutive, but we also live parallels. In other words, the past, the present, and the future are all happening simultaneously.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll go Back to the Future.
Yes, exactly like Back to the Future. There are several good movies and TV shows that, give you an idea and a hint of what's going on. And see, when I had my premonitional dreams of what I was going to go through, one of the things I was told, they're giving us messages in the movies and the TV shows. And I realized it was both positive and negative. It depends on what you focus on as to what you get from it. Okay. A good TV series that I liked on the time travel was called Timeless, and they have that one on Hulu. Another one that shows, something of jumping timelines is The Butterfly Effect. There's actually 3 of those movies. Okay. Everybody recognizes the Back to the Future ones. You go back and you change one little thing and it changes everything. Okay. And so again, what I've been shown and told and experienced is the past, the present, and the future are all happening simultaneously. But in this dimension, we are limited in our thinking to this is it, this is all there is. And really, that can be a scary thought and process, because then people think when it ends, that's it, it's over, it's done. And it's not. I've had in-depth discussions with you. I have bounced around these different timelines, especially in the last 8 years, and I have seen the timelines end in different fashions.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've had numerous conversations.
From my understanding of it and what I've been shown is this is the one where we're bringing it all back together in one. All those divisions and all those other timelines, they're coming back together in this one.
So what does that mean?
Okay, let's say one timeline ended with an alien invasion. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Another one ended, with civil war. Another one ended, all these different ways that it can come to an end, a conclusion. Okay. And then in between the loops, if you will, the time loops, we have this huge party, and the people in your circle, you all get together, you have a good time, you go on these trips and stuff, and then it's time to go back in to someplace in the timeline. And where you go back in the timeline is where you made the crucial mistake that ended that timeline for you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I got you.
Where you made the mistake and you went wrong. You were supposed to go right, but you went left.
Okay.
And so you're put back into that area in the timeline where you can
fix it.
Yes.
Okay.
And remember, there are no choices that are wrong as long as you learn from them. Okay. If you learn from it, now, are there choices that you can make that are better? Absolutely. That's the case with every choice we ever make.
Yeah.
But as long as you stop and say, okay, my life is really crappy right now, and I don't understand why it is, but let me look at this. What am I supposed to learn from this? And if you start asking that question in every situation that you're dealing with, the answers will start showing up for you. And you will see. I used to have this reoccurring dream that I was being sent back to school. And every time I would go back to school, I couldn't remember what classes I was taking. So I had to go to the office and get a copy of my schedule. And then I couldn't get the locker open. Couldn't remember my combination. So I'd have to go get the combination to the locker. And then I was told that, the class is the lesson that you're supposed to be learning. And the combination is when you figure out the right way in it.
Okay.
I don't go back to school anymore. They don't send me on that, in that dream anymore. Now I get ones that have amusement rides in them.
Christina had a question. Are there ways to find out if you've lived in past lives, or rather who you were in past lives?
Yes, you can do what they call a past life regression. There are some really good books about it. And you can even do, they're like meditations or self-hypnosis. But the name Dr. Brian Weiss, that's Weiss, he has some meditations that you can download that are self-hypnosis. And the first time I tried it, it took me about a week to be able to experience. My husband did it and he had an experience first time out of the gate. I said, that's not fair. But again, you have to practice it and you do it over and over again, because as you continue to do the meditations, if you don't get it the first time, if you do it consecutively for 3 to 5 times a week for 2 weeks. By the time you get to the end of 2 weeks, you're going to be seeing, hearing, and experiencing things. Okay? And Dr. Weiss's, you can find a couple of his things on YouTube. I would recommend, because you want to do it over and over again, there's a company called Hay House Publications, and they have his CDs. You can download them to your phone or your computer, and I recommend using either earbuds or a headset to listen to them so that you can really be focused in on what he's walking you through the meditation. And if you can consistently and consecutively do it for 3 to 5 times, you will experience it.
Okay. Well,
And Barbara, I noticed it, but it's kind of scrolled up. But you said that you think you're seeing spirits, and sometimes can that happen? People are experiencing those things right now more than ever, and people that have never experienced it, because the veil is very thin right now. Okay, it's very thin between here and the spirit realm, and the best, never fear it. Okay, because there are people that have deceased, they don't have a physical body anymore, but they operate on, they haven't evolved enough. Okay, and you don't, when you pass away, if you're not evolved, you're not suddenly going to become a saint because you died. Okay, as above, so below. So don't operate in fear of it, because there are those that feed off of that. But know that you're in control. You can call on the Archangel Michael, who is the Archangel of protection. If it feels uncomfortable, the first thing you say to them is, "You're not welcome here. Please leave." And they are required, because that is one of the universal laws of this realm. Okay? There is nothing to be afraid of when you see the spirits. Some of them that you're seeing, it may be people that you've been connected with that have passed away. I can remember, and Krista knows this happened. I went and did a workshop up in New Jersey, and I had been to a couple of different people, and your stepfather was following me around because he had some messages that he wanted to bring through. And I went to see, after I'd done this workshop, I went to see a lady who is a mentor for me. And this was like my first meeting with her. And George came through, and we recorded that, and I brought the recording home and let Krista listen to it, because I knew that if I told her, she might not believe what I was saying. And again, my dad has visited. When someone comes to you in a dream, those are not just dreams, those are actual visits. And they feel different when you wake up, because it feels as though the person was actually there. But again, because the veil is so thin and we're going through this ascension process, if you will, and it's not just the humans, the earth itself is ascending. So we're going through a birthing process into a new age. And so the veil is very thin. People are experiencing, seeing, hearing, all kinds of things. The cigarette smoke is, it's got to be somebody that that did smoke, and they're trying to get your attention.
I remember when I was sitting in the house, Mom, I kept smelling the perfume. You remember that?
Yes. Again, those are the things that come through. And yes, Christina, the spirits do come through in the dreams. Those are the visits. Those are visits, and they do feel different. Now, I can remember back when I was in New York with my youngest. She was doing modeling commercials, things of that nature. And my husband was at our house in Fredericksburg, and he works shifts, and he could hear this. Now, I've been doing readings for years, okay, and I had done many readings in that house, and spirits have a tendency to follow me around, and they were having something of a party, and he was getting somewhat agitated because he had to go to work, and he told me, he said he opened the door, and he said, "Listen, I don't mind if y'all have a party, but you need to keep it down because I got to go to work." And then he shut the bedroom door, and it quieted down. Krista, you stayed in the house. Do you remember the time? I think I had gone down to Carmen's to take her and her dog home that had gotten lost, and you had a visitor in the basement. Do you remember?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of it used to be a running joke, but it's something that we have experienced a lot of, and anybody that's been around me has experienced it. I had a situation. This was a good 20 years ago. I went in the bathroom and turned the light on, and I was done in there, and I went to turn it off, and the light wouldn't turn off. And I'm standing there flipping the switch up and down. My husband had to replace the switch. Spirits love to mess with energy and electricity because that's something that is easy for them to manipulate.
You see Barbara's question or statement?
Yes. You're talking about the brother. Yes, your brother's okay. He's telling me that he wants to give you a big hug. Does that make sense to you?
So I think we've been going here for over an hour.
Okay, I think, well, we want to keep it like right at the hour here.
Yes. But again, we're doing this every other week. So every other Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So we'll be doing this again. Let me look at the calendar and see what's the next day. The 13th, October 13th at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
It's been fun, as always.
And Barbara said, yes, she said, OMG, yes.
Good.
So yeah, thank you guys for joining. We want to make this interactive, so please feel free to ask questions. Let us know where you're joining from so we can say hi, and we appreciate it.
Even if you have topics that you want discussed, one of the things that is going to be an ongoing topic is the vibrational shift, because we're going through it, we're experiencing it, and many people don't have any idea how to get through it. They think they're losing their minds, and there are so many things that we can do to help with that. And again, that's why I got the blessing of being put through all of the experiences and helping other people understand it and go through it and know that they're not losing their minds and what's happening is real is one of the reasons that I'm out here doing this.
And you call it a blessing, and it's so hard for people.
It is a blessing. I feel very blessed to be able to help people. Now, I can tell you the beginning of that walk, as you well know, was not fun. Mm-hmm. I call it my little walk through hell. But I wouldn't trade where I am right now in that journey, in being able to stand on the outside of all this chaos that's going on and understand it and know where we're headed, than to be somebody that's in the second wave that is just now starting and has no idea what's going on and scared to death.
And let's go ahead and let anyone watching how they can get a hold of you if they like to. schedule a
Okay.
reunion or reach out to you directly?
Yes. My email address is pam@heavencallingearth.com. The phone number, which you can text or call, and my assistant will get back with you, is 914-620-5776. If you need to check out the prices for sessions, that is on the website. That is heavencallingearth.com.
And I will put all that information in the notes for the stream as well.
And yes, Barbara, you can reach out and we can set something up. Okay?
And thank you guys. Please let us know. And again, we're taking suggestions on show topics. It can be vetoed by the main host herself, but but yes, any topics, any show suggestions, questions you have them ready for us. And thank you guys. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.